Second part. 5 days have passed since the surveillance system was destroyed. That's too long, said Hiki. In the interim, us hunters have gotten no word of anything happening around Balsa Hill. How about you folks? The mayor shook his head. The sheriff stepped in, saying, "Same here. Jagos is the nearest village to it. But just this morning, we got word from their sheriff's office that nothing was out of the ordinary." "By calm, Bug?" Barry Dawn asked. "Yeah? Why?" "We can tell just by their voice if someone's a normal human, or a noble, or a victim of their nobility, for that matter." "So can I," the sheriff retorted, puffing his chest, but then his eyes went wide. It was a few seconds before he managed to say, "You don't mean to tell me..." Calm bugs were insects that would repeat the words they were told. In that respect, they were like parrots. There was no way to tell anything about the person who'd spoken those words to them. "Don't tell me the village of Jagos has been... It's been 5 days. If those 5 nobles set their mind to it, even the most highly guarded village couldn't fend them off for a single day." Then the calm bug. From one of the villagers they turned. "No doubt. Jagos has a population of roughly 250. That's more than enough to slake their thirst for blood and yearning for slaughter. And they go through them in a day. If they dawdled too long, nearby villages might take notice. We must assume they've long since taken leave of the village, leaving behind villagers they fed on. Reports that nothing was out of the ordinary probably came from villagers trying to lure in fresh victims." The subject was so horrible. The sheriff made a choking sound. "Well, where are they then?" To the sheriff's quavering inquiry, Barry replied, "No idea. Could be they're headed for another bigger village. As I recall, about 120 miles south of Balsa Hill, there's the town of Calico, right? And there you've got flights to the capital, and regularly scheduled buses. But if I were a blood-starved noble, the first thing I'd do is attack the nearest village. Once I'd satisfied my craving, I'd head straight out to exact my vengeance. I'd ignore Calico." Suddenly the mayor sank. He'd been standing, but he settled into the chair behind him. Well, not so much settled as collapsed. The twitch in his face that rocked his white beard, and the vacant look in his eyes announced that he'd realized nothing short of his own fate. Nothing could be crueler. "My daughter, Annette, is coming home from the capital," he said as if delirious, squeezing the words through parched lips. "The university's on holiday. This afternoon, she'll be arriving at Calico's airport. Tomorrow, she'll head back here. And they know it." "How?" the sheriff asked, furrowing his brow. He wanted to throw his badge in the trash at about this point. "Jagos. My daughter's nanny lives in the village. I've heard she and my daughter still correspond. I'm sure she'd know about her vacation plans." "I see. First, they'll hit you where it hurts, eh?" tear the daughter of the hated foe limb from limb? No, they'll probably make her one of them. And that would be the ultimate revenge, the confessor said with a relish. But the mayor didn't even have the strength to rail at the man. Set off at once. First, my daughter, you must protect my Annette. Once she's safe, destroy them. Turn every last one of them to dust. The mayor's words had begun to spin from dazed to crazed, but they sounded like derisive laughter to Barry Dawn as he said, "The town of Calico's a full day's ride on a fast horse. We better get going. You happen to have a picture of your daughter." "Come to my house," replied the mayor, staggering to his feet. "She's a hell of a looker," Barry Dawn said, holding the photo up over his head and shutting one eye. "You can say that again. If I'd known that, I'd have told you to pay me half wages and throw in this little peach," Hiki chimed in. The group was on the street in front of the mayor's house. All of them were astride cyborg horses, and at first glance they just seemed to be hanging around chatting. Yet an air of danger slowly emanated from them. The battle wouldn't begin when they came into contact with the nobles. It would begin sooner. Right now, in fact. And the chances of them cooperating seemed but as likely as an atheist believing in the Lord. The instant they'd learned the deaths of their peers would increase their own compensation, and they'd all become enemies, almost as much as the nobility were. High in the saddle and looking as gloomy as ever, Leica said, "We're all in the same boat. From here on out, we're rivals. Best wishes to you." And saying that, he gave a kick to his horse's flanks and galloped off to the north. "I know you don't. You won't steal a march on me." With those cries, the confessor and Barry Dawn gave chase. Quaker Eston was also about to gallop off, but he quickly pulled back on the reins to stop his horse, and then craned his bull neck toward the last of the group, Hiki. He alone showed no signs of following after the pack. "Aren't you going?" From the back of his steed, the slim seraphim of a man grinned faintly. "Sure I am. Last to leave and first to arrive. Off you go. And don't you worry about me. We'll meet again after I've taken care of those lousy nobles." In response to those strangely confident remarks, the giant raised one hand and rode off. Once the figure that looked like he'd crushed his horse at any moment had disappeared on the road, Hiki spread his arms from his spot in the saddle. The sleeves of his thin garment ran from his wrists to his ankles almost like wings, and they became taut membranes. "No one day. Let's make some then." His slender foot kicked the horse's flank. The cyborg horse galloped off down a road in completely the opposite direction from the man's four colleagues. "Last to leave and first to arrive," Hiki murmured as if the words were a spell, and then he lightly jumped up on top of his saddle and spread his arms. The pair of membranes caught the wind, billowing out behind him like the wings of an angel. And then Hiki's body drifted into the air, quickly rising higher and higher, just like an angel. Perhaps that was why his name was written with the ancient characters for flight and demon. Catching the wind, or the airflow from his cyborg horse's mad gallop, he had become a bird. Perhaps the animal had been trained in this regard, and because on loosing its master, the cyborg was halted and raised its head, spotting the figure that had already been reduced to a speck. And before long, the speck was flying north at a speed no bird could ever match, and the horse began to give chase with the wind swirling in its wake. No one save this faithful steed knew that its skybound master was now flying at a rate easily in excess of the speed of sound. Page break. 3 hours later, a calm bug from the town of Calico brought the sheriff shocking news. With the insect in hand, the lawman ran to the mayor's house and had it repeat what it had told him. The village of Iagos is gone, burned to the ground. The mayor asked once more, and the locust-like calmbug responded in the affirmative. A product of the nobility, not only could the insect understand human speech and engage in conversation, it could also fly to its destination at supersonic speeds. 5 days ago, someone attacked the village of Iagos, turning its inhabitants into servants of the nobility. For 4 days, no travelers passed through there. But on the morning of the 5th day, the town of Calico received this information via a calmbug from a traveler paying a call on the village. Word of this had shocked the town of Calico, and the reconnaissance party that was immediately dispatched had confirmed the accuracy of the traveler's report. In Iagos, the villagers had been sleeping in houses, with all the windows shut, and their fangs exposed. However, there'd only been 5 of them, and the rest were in the village meeting place, and they'd been reduced to brutalized corpses, and their limbs either ripped off or chopped off. And the reconnaissance party had been reminded of the end of the Xeno clan had met. And the reconnaissance party had been reminded of the end the Xeno clan had met. According to the calmbug, the strange devastation had come when evening approached. Having completed their investigation, the reconnaissance party had left the village, but there was an aircraft they'd spotted, even before making their exit. For roughly an hour, it had been circled at an altitude of about 1,000 feet, as if waiting for the group to leave. And once the reconnaissance party was some 1,500 feet from the village, the craft dropped something. Purely by chance, one member of the reconnaissance party happened to see it transpire. And then the village was enveloped in flames. At that last remark from the calmbug, the mayor closed his eyes. The sheriff couldn't tell whether the old man was trying to picture the fire inferno, or to expel it from his memory. The lawman immediately thought of something else, what he'd discussed with the 5 hunters just before they'd left. After slaking their thirst in the village of Iagos, and playing out their bloody vengeance, where had the nobleman vanished to? And then, on noticing a certain sound, he turned his gaze out the window to a world approaching nightfall. Damn it all, rain it all, this of all times. If they run into those bastards soaked to the skin, they'll be off to their final reward. And all of this shitty luck. Page break. In the blink of an eye, the light rains that had started just around noontime had become a torrential downpour. The kind of heavy rain unique to the frontier that would hammer those on the road. Hammer them. The terrible precipitation could strike a person with the same force as hail, leaving unprepared travelers unconscious on the end and openly inviting death. On meeting the kind of downpour that occasionally killed even monsters, people would go into their homes, while travelers would either make use of a portable tent or retreat to one of the emergency shelters situated along the highways. where they'd pray that the severed rains wouldn't become a thunder and lightning storm. Out on the frontier, lightning would split massive trees and shatter boulders just like the spear of a great deity of antiquity. Even greater fire dragons and armored beasts wouldn't escape instantaneous death if they were struck. As a result, the people of the frontier had come to refer to the lightning that bleached those downpours as the glittering gates to the land of the dead. Out in those fearsome rains, the carriage raced recklessly on. It was a coach that had been hired in town. Unfortunately for both the passenger and the driver, the day of their departure had been blessed with sunshine and blue skies. A crowning piece of his fortune was the fact that the aircraft carrying this passenger had arrived in the capital more than an hour ahead of schedule. And by the time the downpour hit them, the coach was in the middle of a high pass, where both pressing on and turning back became impossible. And while the driver recommended turning back, the passenger had insisted that they press on. If they continued on 3 miles beyond the pass, there'd be a shelter. And the driver, who'd actually been on the fence about what to do, then decided to go for it. Now the rain sprayed off the carriage so hard it left a white haze over it, as it was coming up on the crest of the pass. "We made it," the driver announced with an approximation of relief from beneath his vinyl slicker. It was unclear whether the flash of white that bleached the world then was to celebrate that fact, or if it was just a mocking bit of irony. Only a heartbeat later came a crack of thunder, like the howl of a colossal beast. The pair of cyborg horses reared on their hind legs, in an expression of the instincts they'd had since before their conversion. Fear. "Gates to the land of the dead," the driver murmured in a dazed tone, as he desperately fought the panicked horses. "Got no choice but to shoot down from the passing one go. Don't know if the footing will be safe or not, though." As if his grumbling had been overheard, a voice from the brass communication tube set to the right of his seat said, "It's okay. Just keep going." It was a strong yet cultured voice of a young lady. "Like I needed you to tell me that," the driver thought to himself, but recalling how she'd overruled him when he wasn't sure whether or not they could make it over the pass, he responded, "Well, I aim to." And then he raised his whip defeatedly. Second part, end.